Okay, you guys. So, something wild just happened, and I need y'all to pay very close attention because this ain't a normal music story. This is a receipt story. This is a paper trail story. And baby, by the time I'm done breaking this down, you're going to look at your feed different. You're going to look at your favorite honest gossip channels different. And you're going to understand exactly why two specific creators dropped the exact same take on the exact same day about Drake, and then one of them cut the replies off like a guilty man running from a courtroom. Lock in. The tea is hot, the receipts are hotter, and somebody upstairs is not gonna like this one. Now, before we get into the meat of it, let me set the table real quick, because if you just scrolled in, you might think you missed a whole news cycle. You didn't miss a thing. What you actually missed is a coordinated little narrative that slipped out in real time. Two content creators, back to back, same afternoon, pushing damn near identical talking points about Drake and the ICEMAN album, like they had been texting each other from the same group chat. And baby, I don't play about patterns. Because when two people say the same wrong thing at the same time, that ain't opinion. That's a script. And somebody wrote it. First up, we got a man calling himself Screwface Gene. Now, Screwface hops on the timeline and tweets, and I'm going to paraphrase because I want to stay professional. He says the album came and went. He says the conversation ain't been about the music since around week 2. He says everybody is just here for the memes now. Bold claim. Big words. Very confident tone. The kind of tweet that begs strangers to slide in the replies. So what does Screwface Gene do? He turns the replies off. Cuts the whole conversation. Locks the door behind him. Walks off into the sunset like nobody would notice. Baby, if you were really that sure of what you just said, why are you scared of what the comment section is about to say back? That is not a hot take. That is a hit and run. And Screwface Gene, my darling, I got your license plate. Then here comes creator number 2. Man goes by Read My Soul. Says he's from Harlem, which, hold that thought, because we're going to circle back to Harlem in a second, because that detail alone might be the most suspicious thing in this whole story. Read My Soul jumps on camera and says, and I'm keeping it clean, that about this ICEMAN album, not one song does he see organically moving in these streets. Not one. Zero. Nada. He says the only thing he sees viral is the Scam Boys and a couple different videos going around. Then, in the same breath, y'all, in the same breath, he pivots and says he's hearing Spin That everywhere. He's hearing T.I. and Rick Ross. He's hearing Crybaby by Vince Staples. He's got new songs on his radar. So let me get this straight, Read My Soul. Your algorithm is sharp enough to catch a Vince Staples record most of your audience hadn't even heard yet, but it cannot find the biggest artist on the planet. Baby, that ain't an algorithm problem. That is a selective hearing problem. And it is contagious right now. Extremely contagious. Now here's the twist nobody wanted to say out loud. This wasn't a review. This wasn't honest analysis. This was a narrative. A rehearsed, recycled, plug-and-play narrative that has been passed around the gossip corners of the internet like a bad rumor at a family cookout. And the second you pull the string, the whole thing unravels. So we're gonna pull every last thread. We're playing Mythbusters tonight, but not the Science Lab version. The Gossip Corner version. Where we run every single claim these two dropped through the receipts machine. And I promise you, before we're done, you're going to understand exactly why Screwface Gene cut those replies off. Because when the facts show up, feelings gotta sit down. Myth number 1. The ICEMAN album disappeared after 2 weeks. Nobody's playing it. It came, it went, it's gone. That was the story. Now let me ask you something, y'all. If the biggest basketball moment in almost 30 years happened 2 weeks ago, in the middle of New York City, at the most watched NBA Finals since 1998, and the entire Knicks locker room was blasting a song from this so-called dead album, how exactly did it disappear? Because that footage exists. That celebration exists. Those players weren't paid to press play. They were hyped. They were vibing. That was not a marketing stunt. That was a locker room. That was real life. So somebody explain to me how a man from Harlem, who says he loves his city, missed the biggest Knicks moment in a generation. You didn't see it, Read My Soul? Or did you see it and pretend you didn't? Because those are two very different confessions. And it wasn't just one song. It wasn't just one moment. It was a boogie playing on repeat. Shout out to Highbridge. Shout out to Fly. Shout out to Bubba. Shout out to the whole gang. It was the most famous athlete on the entire planet hitting the Iceman celebration emote from that same track. Not a hometown player. Not a random hooper. The most famous athlete on earth, doing that dance on the biggest stage, in front of billions of eyeballs. And you want me to believe the album is culturally irrelevant? Baby, cultural irrelevance does not get soccer superstars memorizing your choreography. Cultural irrelevance does not get NBA players bouncing off the walls in a locker room like it's a music video. The math ain't mattering. Myth number 1, down. Cremated. Next. Now watch what happens when you show the receipts. Watch how the story flips. Because this is where the gaslighting really cranks up. When you show them the video, when you show them the moment, when you show them the metric, they always pivot. Always. They always say the same thing. Oh, those are bots. Oh, that's paid. Oh, that ain't real. Nobody actually likes it. It's all manufactured. Convenient, right? Anything you can prove, they can dismiss. Anything you can film, they can call fake. That is not analysis, y'all. That is a defense mechanism. That's what you do when the truth is too loud to argue with. So let's take it to the streets. Let's take it to TikTok. Because TikTok is the one platform where bots cannot hide, because that algorithm punishes fake engagement faster than any other app on earth. And what do we find on TikTok? We find black women, black men, white men, Latinos, Eastern Europeans, Western Europeans, South Americans, Asians, all lip-syncing, dancing, remixing, laughing, reposting songs from this album that supposedly nobody is playing. We got a whole viral moment around shebang. We got trends built off throw some lotion on my elbows. Silly stuff. Fun stuff. The exact kind of organic humor and creativity that money literally cannot buy. You cannot manufacture that. You cannot pay for that. That is the sound of a song crossing cultures. That is the sound of a song crossing borders. That is the fingerprint of a real hit, whether you personally like it or not. Whether Screwface Jean likes it or not. Whether Read My Soul likes it or not. So if none of this is showing up on your feed, if none of this is registering in your world, that ain't the world's problem. That is your algorithm. And your algorithm was built by you, from the clicks you clicked, the videos you watched, the hate you engaged with. If you spent the last year training the internet to feed you nothing but Drake slander, then congratulations. Your feed is doing exactly what you asked. And now you're mistaking your own personal bubble for the entire planet. That ain't reality, y'all. That's a mirror. Myth number 2, busted. 2 down. But here's where the receipts really start dropping like a Diddy exhibit. Let's leave the vibes alone for a second. Let's talk pure numbers. Because numbers don't have feelings. Numbers don't live in echo chambers. Numbers don't care which YouTube channel you subscribe to. Whisper My Name, that's the track. That song just crossed 100 million streams on Spotify. 100 million with a capital M. And guess what, y'all? That makes it the 5th song on ICEMAN to cross the 100 million mark. 5th. On an album that has been out for 7 weeks. 7 weeks. Do you understand what that means? Every 14 days, another song from this dead album is quietly hitting a milestone most artists spend their entire career trying to reach even once. 5 songs. 7 weeks. Do the math. That ain't a flop. That ain't a fading fire. That is a wildfire that people are pretending they can't smell. Oh, but it gets worse for Screwface Jean and Read My Soul. Let's talk radio play. Now, to be fair and real, radio is Drake's weakest lane right now. It is not his 2016 peak. It is not his prime spin era. But even on his weakest lane, Too Hard for the Radio is polling over 12 million radio listeners. Janice STFU is polling 15 million. So if you got in your car in New York City this month and you accidentally hit Power 105 or Hot 97, you're telling me you never once heard those songs? Impossible. Literally impossible. Unless you're driving with the radio on mute and your ego on max volume. And I think we both know which one it is. Billboard, same story. The album is number 4 on the chart 2 months in. Peaked at number 1. Still hasn't left the top 10. Janice STFU debuted at number 1 on the singles chart and is still sitting in the top 10. Shebang debuted at number 4 and is still holding it down in the top 25. 3 separate songs, all still charting, all still relevant. And Read My Soul from Harlem looked into a camera and said this album disappeared. Sir. Ma'am. Whoever you are, that is not an opinion. That is not a hot take. That is a lie. A verifiable, receipt crushable, chart visible, in writing lie. Myth number 3, not just busted. Cremated. Now, I want to be fair for a second. I really do. Because part of me wants to give these two the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Screwface Gene is just out of the loop. Maybe Read My Soul really is that disconnected. Maybe their algorithm is that broken. But then I look at what they did engage with, and I get real quiet. Because they saw T.I. and Rick Ross drop a track. They noticed Vince Staples. They knew about niche viral clips, meme trends, scamboy alerts. Their radar was sharp. Their eye was clean. So how does that same radar go completely blind the second Drake drops a project? How does that same sharp eye lose focus on the exact story every other person on the planet is watching? That ain't a coincidence, y'all. That's a choice. And that is the whole pattern. That is what nobody wants to say out loud. There is a specific corner of the internet, a specific ecosystem of creators, and they have quietly agreed to a rule. And the rule is simple. Whatever Drake does, downplay it. Whatever numbers he pulls, dismiss them. Whatever cultural moment he creates, call it fake, call it bot, call it corny, call it manufactured. Never once acknowledge it. Because the second they acknowledge it, the whole grift crumbles. The whole he's over narrative dies overnight. And a lot of people have built entire channels, entire brands, entire personalities on that narrative surviving. So they can't let it die. Even when it's cold in the ground, they still gotta perform CPR on a corpse just to keep the checks coming. And the checks, baby, the checks are the whole reason we're here. Now, real quick, let me pause and tell y'all what actually tipped me off. It wasn't the tweets. It wasn't even the videos. It was the timing. Both of these creators dropped their takes on the exact same day, in the exact same window, using almost identical phrasing. Came and went. Not moving organically. Only see memes. That is not two independent thinkers coincidentally landing on the same conclusion. That is a talking point. That is a coordinated message. And I would love to know who wrote it. Because when narratives move that cleanly across multiple accounts on the same day, somebody is coordinating. Somebody is suggesting. Somebody is whispering in a group chat. And that somebody is playing chess while these two are out here thinking they're just being real. Spoiler alert, they're pawns. And the board is way bigger than they realize. Now, before somebody in the comments starts typing, well, if it's that big, why isn't my feed showing it? Let me answer that. Because that's a fair question. And here's the honest answer, y'all. If you spend all day, every day, watching, liking, and clicking on anti-Drake content, YouTube and TikTok are going to feed you more of the same. That is not a Drake problem. That is a you problem. Your feed is a mirror of your habits. If you built the echo chamber yourself, don't be shocked when it echoes back. The rest of the world is not obligated to live in your basement. And this is where you gotta do the hard work. Literally. Go outside. Go to the World Cup, the biggest sporting event on this planet, where players from countries most people can't even locate on a map are warming up to ICEMAN tracks. Where players from 3 different continents are hitting the ICEMAN celebration emote after scoring goals. Where fans, drunk on adrenaline and beer in stadiums half a world away, are singing hooks from this album like it's a national anthem written for their country. That is not America. That is not New York. That is not a paid campaign. That is global culture moving in real time, in stadiums, in front of hundreds of thousands, broadcast to billions. And you're telling me the album disappeared? In what universe? Point me at that universe, please. I want a plane ticket. Now let me talk about the psychology real quick, because this part unlocks the whole story. There is a very real difference between not liking something and pretending it does not exist. Y'all can not like this album. Y'all can not like Drake. Y'all can think the music is corny, mid, whatever adjective makes you feel superior on any given Tuesday. That is a valid opinion. Nobody's taking that from you. But the second you cross the line from I don't like it to it doesn't exist, nobody's playing it, it disappeared, it's dead, you are not giving an opinion anymore, baby. You are rewriting reality. And that is not criticism. That is cosplay. Y'all are LARPing as music journalists and praying nobody checks the math. Well, guess what? I checked. And the math ain't matting. That is exactly why I'm sitting here tonight with this energy. Facts over feelings, y'all. Say it with me. Facts. Over. Feelings. Because Screwface Jean and Read My Soul, and I say this with love, they are so emotionally attached to the version of Drake they want to exist that they cannot process the version of Drake that actually exists in real life. In their head, he is finished, washed, done, over. And they need that story to be true so bad that they are willing to ignore stadium footage, Billboard charts, streaming numbers, radio spins, TikTok trends, NBA locker rooms, and World Cup warm-ups just to keep it alive. That is not analysis, y'all. That is grief. They are grieving a version of reality that never existed. And they are dragging their whole audience into that grief with them. That is the real tragedy hiding under the tweet. And that's the trap. Because their audience trusts them. Their audience thinks they're getting real, honest, ground-level analysis. But what they're really getting is a curated fairy tale. A comfortable little bedtime story where the artist they hate is losing and everything is going according to plan. And the second one of these creators tries to tell the truth, the second one of them says, you know what, actually this album is doing insane numbers, they get eaten alive in their own comments. So they can't. They're stuck. Trapped by the very audience they trained to hate. That is not power. That is a hostage situation. And they built the prison themselves with their own two hands. You know what the wildest part is? I came into this album a little skeptical too. I did. I'm not going to sit here and act like I was day one on everything. Real talk, when Tabati dropped, I liked it immediately. But Maid of Honor, I was on the fence at first. Wasn't feeling it. Didn't click. I said out loud, on camera, that I wasn't a fan yet. And you know what I did? I sat with it. I listened again. I gave it a real, honest, unbiased spin. And guess what, y'all? I was wrong. I was flat out wrong. Maid of Honor is fire. Rusty intro that I originally didn't like, now I love it. Been playing that album non-stop, because I gave it what these two creators refused to give it. A fair chance. A second listen. An honest ear. That is the difference between honest criticism and dishonest narrative. One evolves. The other stays stuck. And I'm not staying stuck for nobody. Not for the algorithm. Not for the timeline. Not for the group chat. Here's the thing about the culture, and I really want y'all to hear me on this one. When we, as fans, as creators, as commentators, refuse to be honest about what artists are actually doing, we corrupt the entire conversation. We turn everything into a team sport. It stops being about music. It becomes about which side you're on, which flag you're waving, which artist you're rooting against. And that ain't music anymore, y'all. That is tribalism. That is fandom dressed up as journalism. And baby, 2024 broke a lot of minds in this culture. It broke people. It sent them into corners of the internet where the goal is no longer the truth. The goal is only the win. And they will ignore any receipt, any chart, any stadium, any locker room, any World Cup, just to protect that win. That is a sickness. And the first step to healing it is calling it what it is, out loud, on camera. No filter. No apology. So let me pull it all together. What actually happened here? Two creators walked outside, looked directly at a burning building, and said, I don't see any smoke. And when we handed them the video of the flames, they said, that's AI. When we handed them the receipts, they said, those are bots. When we handed them the numbers, they said, numbers don't matter. When we handed them the global reaction, they said, that's paid. At what point do you realize, y'all, the problem is not the fire. The problem is your eyes. Your feed. Your bubble. Your ego. And Screwface Jean and Read My Soul are not the first people to fall into that trap. They won't be the last. But please, please, don't sell it to your audience like it's the truth. Because it's not. It's just feelings wearing a name tag that says analysis. And that's never been real. Not once. I'ma leave you with this, and I want y'all to sit with it. If a song is playing in an NBA locker room after the most watched finals in almost 30 years, and it's still moving in World Cup stadiums 2 months later, and it's charting 5 separate tracks past 100 million streams in 7 weeks, and it's on the radio hitting over 12 million ears on multiple stations, and it's charting 3 separate songs on the Billboard singles chart, and TikTok is still spawning trends off it every week, and global creators from 5 continents are dancing to it. And the biggest athlete on the planet is celebrating goals with its emote, then that album did not come and go, y'all. That album arrived. That album parked. That album unpacked its bags. That album ain't leaving. Not tomorrow. Not next month. Not next year. Not the year after. And whoever's writing these creator scripts, whoever is whispering these narratives into their earpieces, whoever is making sure the same recycled talking points hit the timeline on the same day like clockwork, baby, y'all got played. Because y'all thought this would work in the shadows. Y'all thought nobody was going to pull the receipts. Y'all thought this dumbed down narrative was going to slide through. But somebody was watching. Somebody was writing it all down. And somebody is out here right now, on record, on video, on stream, breaking every last one of your little myths in half. And once one falls, the rest start dropping like dominoes. So the real question tonight ain't whether the album disappeared. It didn't. The real question is who benefits from you thinking it did. And why are those same voices, those same accounts, that same little corner of the internet all whispering the same message at the same time? Follow the money. Follow the algorithm. Follow the pattern. Because the story here ain't about music anymore. It is about influence. It is about who gets to shape the narrative when the numbers cannot be shaped. And the answer to that question is messier than either Screwface Jean or Read My Soul wanted to admit, which is exactly why Screwface Jean turned the replies off. When your story can't survive a comment section, it was never a story. It was a stunt. Now, if you made it this far, do me one favor. Just one. Be honest. Even if you don't like Drake. Even if you can't stand the music. Even if you rolled your eyes at every second of what I just laid out. Be honest about what is actually happening in real life. Because when we start being honest, all of us, the whole culture heals. And when we stay dishonest, we all lose. Doesn't matter which team you're on. Doesn't matter which artist you love. Doesn't matter which one you hate. Just tell the truth. Facts over feelings, every single time. No exceptions. No hall passes. Because at the end of the day, receipts don't lie. Locker rooms don't lie. Stadiums don't lie. Charts don't lie. TikTok trends don't lie. But narratives lie all the time. And tonight, one of the biggest narratives in music just got dragged out into the daylight and stripped down to nothing. So the next time somebody tells you the ICEMAN album disappeared, ask them one simple question. Then why is the whole world still dancing to it? And watch them go silent. Watch them fumble. Watch them pivot. Watch them cut the replies off just like Screwface Jean did. Because when the receipts hit the table, feelings gotta sit down every single time. And one last thing before we wrap this chapter tonight, because I need y'all to remember one very specific detail. It's the smoking gun that ties this whole story together. Both of these creators, on the same day, using the same phrasing, pushed the same narrative. And then one of them turned his replies off. Not paused them. Not limited them. Turned them completely off. Ask yourself, what kind of person shares a bold public opinion and then immediately silences the response? Nobody who actually believes what they said. Only somebody who was told to say it. And that right there is the exact second the mask slipped and the whole internet saw it. That is how you spot a coordinated hit piece in the wild. That is the tell. And I'll tell you something else, and this is the part I've been holding back all night, because I want y'all to really hear me. There is a bigger conversation coming. There is a bigger story about what is happening behind the scenes with certain gossip creators, certain talking points, and certain money flows in the music commentary space. And when it drops, it is going to connect a whole lot of dots that people didn't even know were connectable. I'm not going to say more than that tonight. I'ma sit on it. I'ma let it marinate. But just know, the album disappearing narrative? That was the appetizer. The main course is still in the kitchen. And when it comes out, some of your favorite honest creators are going to have some very, very difficult explaining to do. So stay locked in. Stay tuned. Y'all let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think Screwface Jean and Read My Soul got fed a script? Do you think this whole thing was coordinated? Do you think the ICEMAN album really disappeared, or do you think somebody paid a lot of good money to make you believe it did? Drop it in the comments. I'ma be reading every single one. Because this ain't over. This is just chapter 1. And chapter 2 is where the real names start dropping. Trust me, you're gonna want front row seats when that video goes live. That's all I have for you tonight, and I'll talk to you later.